If you want Colts talk all year long, you're in the right place.
Fires upfield into the end zone. It is caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown. He's going to fire upfield. It's broken up. Tipped and intercepted by the Colts.
This is the official Colts podcast, giving you an updated look at what's new with the Horseshoes.
Colts have it. Interception. 2 seconds left, and the Colts are going to win.
In the Indiana Union Construction Industry radio studio, let's get the podcast started.
Welcome to the official Colts podcast presented by our friends at Wynn Las Vegas. Latte Lara Overton is here. JJ Stankovitz is here. Big storylines everywhere that I need to go over, guys. And one of the biggest ones that we have not talked about over coffee or down at the water cooler at all is we'll get to the Colts' narrow loss a few days ago. But there was life in Lucas Oil Stadium that was literally the start of life. Because, Lara, if you can feed me in on this a little bit, we had a child born during the 39-38 loss to the Browns at Lucas Oil Stadium. I'm coming to you because you're the loudspeaker. You're over the voice of God for the stadium. I thought we could have got an update or something from you.
I didn't know about it until after the game.
Lara, anything from your end? When did you hear about this? And who was it?
I heard about it mid-game. We have, our communication, our channel of everyone in the department, and that's where I saw that there was, an update that someone had given birth in the stadium. And then after the game, there was a reporter from Lafayette that said it's actually the person who gave birth is a cousin of Browns offensive lineman DeWand Jones, who is a Ben Davis product.
Oh, okay, makes sense.
So, yeah, that's per sources. So,
Congratulations. This is the first
How
I've heard that a
wild's
baby
that?
was born right there. I mean, what do you name this kid if you're obviously you have a Browns connection?
Also, what are here's the thing. We can't pull, our medical team off the field. Do we have EMTs that are just, roaming the stadium?
I'm sure
right?
for fans there are. As someone who, hasn't attended a football game as a fan
in a long time,
15 years,
sure.
I'm guessing there are.
And if push came to shove, I'm sure both teams' medical staff would go over somebody that's actually giving birth and no one around can help. I mean, if that was the case, I'm sure they'd be like, hey, T.O., let's give birth, and then we'll come back for the second and 4.
Yeah, now that would be a fun announcement for me to give
That's
to the
what I'm
stadium.
saying.
Now-
There's a timeout on the field. A fan is giving birth in
Yeah.
section 122, row 13.
We have a new attendance today.
Bob Parento's going over. You're going to need a ticket for that one, Do you guys remember during the Super Bowl that Jason Kelsey's wife, Kylie, was pretty far along and she traveled her OBGYN to the Super Bowl in case she went into labor?
Wow.
Yeah.
That was great. Well, we did find some good news last Sunday at Lucas Oil Stadium. It was a great.
Also, congratulations on the birth of your
really.
little
Now,
one.
if you're asking what do you name the kid, I mean, okay.
Miles or Garrett. Well, it doesn't.
I guess if you're coming from a Browns perspective, I was going to say Lucas.
It is.
I was going to
Easy. Lucas.
penalty.
Oh, Lucas, not bad. Yeah. Or they love your job and the job that you do, and they say, hey, what's the kid's name upstairs? JJ.
Yeah, that would be insane behavior.
I'd love it. I would rattle you on every show that you got a baby named after you because. But Lara, that was I want to say a fun one, and what I wanted to bring up with Lara specifically today is if we could, you and I somehow, some way, we know a lot of people in this building, get her hot mic from the last couple of minutes of that football game, because what she says on the air, when she's talking with Matt Taylor and Rick Venturi, is completely different than when the microphone is off. And Lara, I know what your answer is going to be. I know you talked about the raucous crowd and the great environment and everything.
Yeah.
But you had to be spitting mad watching that develop in front of you.
It's one of those things where you always are kind of straddling that level between your instinct being a fan, legitimately a fan, and you have that passion and you're so invested in the outcome. But then you also have to be professional and find ways to coherently and knowledgeably communicate what you're seeing and why and what's unfolding in front of you. So that's always that balance, and it's something that I struggle with in certain situations like last Sunday more than others. But yeah, it was one of those where I'm just biting my tongue. The great thing is Matt Taylor rises to the occasion in those circumstances, and he so well illustrates exactly what's unfolding with no sort of, conjecture or opinion. He is so good about just stating exactly what has happened on the field, painting a perfect picture. So then I just kind of get to lay out, and that gives me time to kind of process a little bit and, bite my tongue initially
No.
and then gather based on what I'll try to do is look at what's happening on the field. Look at the reactions of the guys on the sideline. And that's exactly what I did. My eyes went to Coach Steichen because you think about Shane, so even, so level, so cool-headed. Spitting mad in the ear of the down judge right there. And so that's what I try to relay. Rather than giving necessarily what I might think in a certain situation, I'm more so trying to relay, here's what I'm seeing, being in the vantage point of being down on the field, because then I think it really does help those who are listening to be able to have the full context of, okay, here's exactly what happened, but here are all the other things, the ancillary events going on. What's the reaction on the sideline? What's the response from the defense? These various things to hopefully at least provide a little bit greater perspective, but without, providing any sort of subjectivity.
I got it,
right?
but we do want the NC-17 version one day of
no.
Lara Overton. JJ, and I'm not throwing this on
you. Don't get me in trouble, JG.
because we have she's perfectly great, and I'm just laughing because the way that the Colts ended up losing, and this is one lady that is invested in this team. But JJ, none of us said it. You, JJ Stankiewicz, Lara Overton, myself, Jeffrey Gorman have not said this, but the word around the league is the officiating was horseshit.
Sources say.
Okay. Look,
there were a lot of complaints.
I'm sorry to go there,
here's the
but
thing.
that's not us saying it.
Here's the
Pat
thing.
McAfee said it. There were national guys
Here's
weighing in.
what I struggled to get over is sitting down, digesting the game, watching the Sunday night game, and the Dolphins wide receiver, Cedric Wilson, there's a play where the ball's thrown to him, and his helmet gets yanked like that. He can't see the ball because the Eagles defender grabbed his face mask and yanked it, and there was no flag. And it's like, officiating is subjective. It is difficult. It is really hard. It is such a hard thing to do. You're never going to be 100% right because it's subjective and it's humans doing it. Having said that, when games come down to officiating, you can take it kind of two ways. The first way is you kind of moan about it, you complain about it, you can acknowledge that those calls impacted the game significantly. The way that I think the Colts, after kind of getting through that, are approaching it is, well, we should have made some other plays so it didn't come down to it. That's what I've heard consistently from players and coaches. That does not mean they are not pissed off about it. That does not mean they are not frustrated.
They're taking the high road.
But you got to take the high road. You have to because A, you don't want to get fined for criticizing the officials, and B, if you let it linger, then all of a sudden now that officiating decision is impacting potentially more than just one game.
I'm sorry.
But it sucks.
Lara, I'm sorry. But that pass interference call in the corner of the end zone, what it did and what it brought back to life.
For a ball that was uncatchable to begin with.
Happen in the day and age of 2023, and I get you. I hear what you're saying. It's a human element on it. But in the crux of the game and down at crunch time, you've got a direct line to New York. A direct line. And we're watching this play, and it's an uncatchable ball. And the illegal contact. Ticky-tack possibly. Did he break the plane when he scored? I've got questions on the whole thing.
I'm going to back up even more. I'm going to go to the roughing the passer call on DeForest Buckner. That was another one, even prior to the call on Darrell Baker Jr. That was another one that I thought was questionable at best.
The other part of it, the Colts had opportunities to get off the field on defense on that drive. The 3rd and 10, that kind of hole shot that Walker hit, where if he holds onto that ball a split second longer, DeForest Buckner is pile driving him into the ground. Yeah. It's probably game over.
Yeah.
And he made a great throw. Coverage probably needed to be better on that play. If you don't allow that pass to be completed, you're not even in a position where you're in this spot. If you don't have 3 fumbles and there are 2 fumbles prior to that and an interception. If you turn a red zone possession, that ball that Gardner had to Pittman, where he kind of was a little bit behind him and Pitt kind of juggled it, didn't wind up catching it. If he catches that, if that passes on target, that's probably a touchdown.
It is, yeah.
And you're probably talking about this is a different outcome. If the fumble in the end zone that Gardner had, where Shane said after the game, I probably got too aggressive, called a double move to Alec Pierce. Alec had his guy. He beat Martin Emerson on that play, but it was too long to develop, and Myles Garrett came around and knocked the ball out, recovered in the end zone. You can always go back to different things in the game and say, that swung it, that swung it. The officiating you can include in that, but there are things that were under the Colts' control that could have swung the game to the officiating not being. Because here, the other thing that's frustrating about this game is for the majority of this game, the Colts were the better team on the field. Mm-hmm. You take out the Browns' first drive and their last drive.
Yeah.
Cleveland averaged 4 yards per carry on their possessions in between those two drives. They couldn't move the ball. If the Colts don't turn the ball over, if they just keep doing what they're doing on offense, and you have half of the turnovers you had, you win that game by 10 points.
Collectively, the Colts had the better players. It was seriously a one-man victory for Cleveland with Myles Garrett.
Which is also like, when you take a step back, you're like, Myles Garrett, on a defense that gave up 38 points, he probably won them the game.
Sure.
Despite the rest of that defense giving up 38 points.
No question.
I mean, the fact that you scored 38 points, you had 456 yards of offense on a defense that has been historically good, has only allowed an average of 200 yards in the first 5 games of the season. I mean, I think that says a lot about the promise and what you can build upon. I know no moral victories, no silver lining, but that was something that Shane and I talked about, on Monday with there's a lot of good there to build off of, especially when you're starting to see Jonathan Taylor return to that explosiveness, that breakaway type of speed that you've expected from him, and how exciting it is to see what Shane is doing with him both in the run game and the pass game.
I want to get something out here just about that. So coming out of the game, I think you could look at Shane Steichen 2 ways. The glass half empty way is called that tight end screen that lost 6 yards, called for the double move in the end zone, that wound up costing the Colts some points. You could look at it that way. To me, coaching decisions are always Andy Reid and Bill Belichick at the height of their powers were getting criticized for coaching decisions. That is something that's always going to happen. And that's okay. That comes with the profession. To me, what I'm looking at with Shane Steichen coming out of this game, he put his players in the best positions to make plays against, like you said, Lara, a defense that was allowing 200 yards per game, 3.8 yards per play. Those are historic paces that this Browns defense was on, 15.4 points per game. The Colts went down and they scored. I mean, they had 3 or 4 touchdown drives of 75 yards against this defense, this Browns defense. Shane Steichen found ways to defeat a defense that no one else could beat all season long. And to me, what he's doing, finding those solutions, saying they're going to play a lot of man, we're going to do a lot of stuff with stacks, we're going to do a ton of motion, we're going to get our guys in the best position to make plays with a backup quarterback in there, in Gardner Minshew.
And throwing up 38 points.
And that to me, that just encapsulates why I'm so excited about Shane Steichen. The coaching decisions, sure, those are going to happen. That's fine. It's the putting his players in positions to make plays against a defense as good as that. I feel really good about it.
Let's talk this team offensively and defensively. Here's one of the stats that is mind-blowing. The most points ever given up, the most points ever scored for a Colts loss. Their 38 points are the most ever scored in the history of this franchise. To see stuff that happens, and it hasn't happened before in over 50 years, incredible. So they're putting up 38 points and losing, first time, most points ever. The reason I'm saying that is there is something very good to take from this. Just like JJ said, this offense, what they can do with some of the top offenses, defenses rather, in the league, scoring the 38 points like they did. But on the flip side of that, and I want you to get in defensively, just giving up way too many points as far as it goes. I know what P.J. Walker did, what you're talking about, but boy, oh boy, the time was right on that last drive when he had to have it, and he had those completions. So my point is, Lara, find the good in that for me, if you would. 38 points. We can score offensively on this, but we're giving up a ton of points defensively.
Well, here's the good in that is you're not exactly facing a ton of imposing offenses in this stretch moving forward. When you look at, you have the New Orleans Saints coming in with Derek Carr, who has battled through injuries in the early part of the season. Sure, he's got Alvin Kamara and a couple of other weapons, but this isn't a very potent offensive system. Derek Carr has proved to still be a really good veteran quarterback when you saw the win that they're just coming off of the loss to Jacksonville. He did play well, though, in that second half. They are coming in with additional rest with the Thursday night game. I did think that there were some times in that game where you saw some very vintage Derek Carr-like things, but I think that this is a defense that can really impact what they're going to try to do offensively. You have the loss of Grover Stewart. That's going to be difficult to account for and, find who is going to step up in that situation. I thought last week was a real illustration of what you will miss in these 6 weeks without Grover Stewart. But, okay, Saints, a very beatable team. This is certainly, I like the Colts defense up against the Saints offense in that situation. Carolina, again, still trying to figure out, their identity as an offense with Bryce Young and what they're doing over there. Frank Reich hands over play calling duties to their offensive coordinator. So that's, again, they are in a situation where they have not found a rhythm to the season offensively. And then you go over to Frankfurt, Germany, and you're going to play the New England Patriots, who finally looked like, they
big win. Yeah.
They're coming off a huge win, looked like a team that they can be, but they have really, ridden the wave, highs and lows over the course of this season. Mac Jones has been very inconsistent. The Patriots, their strength is their defense. So you're looking at a lot of factors leading into the bye week where you have very winnable games for your defense. And I think that they'll be heavily fueled by these last two losses. Neither of these games, when you look at Jacksonville and you look at Cleveland, have they played to full potential. And I think this is the point in the season where you do start to find that, and this defense will rise to the occasion with the situations, those three that you have upcoming leading into the bye week.
The thing that that I was looking at is the Colts are 6th in points per game on offense this year. So their peers around them are the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Lions, the Jaguars, and the Ravens. All those teams are averaging between 24 and 26 points per game.
And all are at the top of the...
All those teams are Super Bowl contenders.
Yeah, sure.
Then you look at on defense, the Colts are allowing 27.3 points per game. That's 30th in the NFL. Their peers there, the Bears, the Dolphins, the Cardinals, the Chargers, and the Patriots. All those teams, except for the Dolphins, are teams that you're probably talking about in contention for the number 1 overall pick. So what's going on here? I think some context on the defense. The Colts have allowed... They have had the 6th most sudden change possessions on defense that have started in opposition territory. They've had 6 of those. That is the 2nd most in the NFL behind the Raiders. So you're having 6 possessions start in opposing territory. Opponents have scored on 5 of those. 2 touchdowns, 3 field goals. That is a challenging thing for a defense to steal themselves in those spots. And the Jaguars had both those touchdowns, by the way. Travis Etienne taking it to the house in week 1 and week 6. Outside of that, I think this defense is pretty good at not allowing long drives and not allowing explosive plays. Cleveland had the one explosive play, the Jerome Ford touchdown. After that, the run defense was good. The run defense was good. Jerome Ford had that play, and I think he gained 5 yards on 10 carries the rest of the game. And then the last possession of the game, definitely, this defense is probably going to be disappointed by that they weren't able to get off the field. They allowed Cleveland to get 67 yards of offense before those penalties started to hit. But I think, overall, I feel okay about this defense. I don't think they're going to finish 30th in points allowed, but it is going to take the offense cleaning up the turnover issues to help them out. Having said that, the offense being 6th in points per game.
Pretty good.
Can we just talk about that for a second?
I mean, that's Steichen up there with the great offensive minds in the NFL.
And that's with very limited time with Anthony Richardson.
Yes. You've had 4 starts with Anthony Richardson.
And only 3 games with Jonathan Taylor.
Only 3 games with Jonathan Taylor. And Gardner Minshew is putting up what he did. If you just hang on to the football, if you protect the ball, which is something the Colts are going to, they already drill it. They already drill that in practice. It's now a big emphasis for Gardner Minshew back there. You just hang on to the ball. This offense has some firepower to it. You're getting explosive plays. And to me, that is really encouraging going forward, where, like Larry said, you're playing some offenses that you hope would be more beatable, for lack of a better word, on defense. But if this offense is humming, I mean, you're right up there, and you could start rattling some wins together here. And all of a sudden you look up, coming back on that plane from Germany, and you could be sitting with a pretty decent record, pretty decent playoff
Just
shot.
like
With
Lara
a
said.
Lederhosen and a Stein.
Yeah, I know. Just like you said, though, really, I want to be, a disappointing loss that happened, in the fashion that it did. But these, the next stretch of games, just like Lara talked about, this team is, believe it or not, as we said, we're in the playoff picture of this thing. I mean, you have to put together, stack some wins back to back to back. We've seen on paper what this Colts schedule looks like as far as the opponents that they're going to be playing and the cream of the crop in the NFL. It's not there. So they do have a shot. They do have a shot with Gardner Minshew. But playoff picture-wise, you have to stack them up one at a time. This team is not out of that, even with what they drop in 2 to Jacksonville like they did, but holding, advantages over the Texans and the Tennessee Titans. In a simple arithmetic manner, JJ, what's it going to take?
So the Colts are 3-4 right now. They sit 11th in the AFC standings, but you're talking about you're one game out of a wild card spot, and it's way too early to even dive into any of that. But when you start looking at it, you've got the Chiefs at 6-1. Then the Dolphins, Ravens, Jaguars leading their divisions at 5-2. From there, now you're looking at wild cards. Cleveland's up there, 4-2. Pittsburgh is also 4-2. Buffalo is 4-3.
I can't figure out Buffalo.
Who can?
I have no idea what they're.
I can't figure it.
They're the team that you're like, yeah, they got to be there in the end. Like you got to figure.
I do. I think they'll find a way. Yes.
You would just figure that'll be the case with them. I'm not. Really, I'm probably not lumping them in.
They're the Niners
to this group.
of the AFC.
Oh,
I mean, right?
Yeah,
Similar. Couple of
Francisco,
drops.
2 losses,
I know,
yeah.
2 losses in a row.
So now you're starting to think about like what could the Colts fastball be in this playoff race? And to me, they haven't scored under 20 points in a game all year.
Yeah.
They're the last team in the NFL to do that. And last year, by the way, the Colts scored 20 or more points in 6 games. They've already topped that this year.
And that offense is not going to slow down. I mean,
I don't think they will. I mean,
even with Gardner behind, and we don't know what's going to have to happen with Anthony
Well,
Richardson next year in his offense. But Larry, it's exciting. Just like he said, this offense will score points. I don't care if offensive points in the NFL is a must, and anybody can win when they're putting up 30 points.
I want to factor into this as well the rotation that you've had on the offensive line. You had Bernard Ryman out for a game in concussion protocol. Blake Freeland steps up at that spot, and then you lose Braden Smith for consecutive games. And Blake Freeland, the rookie, has to swing over to that side. So I also think when you look at, what your offensive line has been able to do, and you look at, the production that you have gotten from that group, certainly exponential from where you left off in the 2022 season. I mean, that's an incredible testament to Tony Sperano and what he's done with that unit. So you look at the production offensively, and you take into the factors that this offensive line hasn't really been at full strength for the last 3 to 4 weeks when you're looking at the injury situation. So
both Ryan Kelly in there since week 3.
Right, exactly. That's true. So now you are trying to figure out some continuity up there. That offensive line working with Gardner Minshew. I do think that this is a point where teams start to figure it out. That late October, that month of November is critical. That's where you start to see the divide. That's where you create separation in the NFL. And the teams that are going to be vying for playoff spots are going to position themselves going into December.
Never say never. Hey, let's make a run.
I'm
going to start talking playoffs early for this team. People are going to be rolling their eyes at me. But man, I'm telling you.
But like when you think about if the Colts can lean on their offense, like once you get kind of past, I think, Buffalo in this playoff race, now you're talking about teams that might have flaws, that might not be top 5 in anything in the league. But the Colts can lean on their offense. You look at, the Steelers, the Browns, the Jets, those are teams that can probably lean on their defense based on what we know about them so far. Cincinnati can probably lean on their offense as the season goes on. Joe Burrow's calf gets better. Houston looks like a team that, I don't know if you lean on your offense, your defense, but I think they're going to be competitive through the end. Where does it kind of go? But the Colts, the point I'm trying to make is the Colts, I think, have something they can lean on. They have an offense, and the offensive line is where it starts, Lara, that you can lean on a really good offensive line that can sustain guys being in and out. You can run the ball. Gardner Minshew can keep you competitive in games and give you a chance to win. I mean, I don't mean to be that, eliminate games guy, but you take out the Jaguars' losses, the Colts' 2 losses have come in overtime and by 1 point on the last play of the game, basically. This team's going to be in it in every game. For whatever reason, the Jaguars, tough matchup. You're done playing them in the regular season. So What
You
evidence
still
do
have
we have?
Tennessee and Houston.
What evidence? Right. What evidence do we have that the Colts won't be in every game?
Also, one note on just to kind of double down and go back to Blake Freeland really quickly. One of the things that he told me in preseason, he'd never been to an NFL game until he played in his first.
Wow.
Yeah, and I had to go up
NFL
against
game.
Aaron Donald.
Right? How crazy is that? That's his introduction. Like, that's growing up in Utah, went to BYU. I was like, what's the biggest game you ever went to? And he said, well, when he was going through the recruiting process, he went to a BYU Utah game.
Big one,
That was the biggest game that he'd attended. So you think about going from that's, and that wasn't even playing. That was just, being a fan, experiencing that, and then going through your college career. But then your introduction to the NFL is going in, starting on offensive line. That's crazy.
Yeah, and not just starting an offensive line. He's got Aaron Donald, Myles Garrett in recent weeks. Josh Allen is no slouch over there in Jacksonville. That's pretty tough.
Should you put if you're deep in your own end, and you got Garrett on the outside, should you? I'm being serious. Should you put 4 people on him?
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Not 3. I'm literally saying, like, should we have 4
You have to
people
build a wall. Yes.
in that area because of the wreckage
I would
that he
like to know.
creates?
I would like to know. Like,
But then he also just leaps over people. So
yeah,
I don't
I mean,
know. Like
we saw that. It was big.
box
We were banging on that thing, saying, "Why is 95 on? Why is 95 there? Oh, he's looking at, and he's standing there. Then he's
Yeah.
going down. Then he came up a little bit, and there's like nothing but a hole right there by Luke Rhodes. And I'm like, oh, don't tell me this. Don't tell me we're going to see something here. And if it was, give me a feather touch on the back of the jersey for Luke
Penalty.
Rhodes, and that penalty flag goes up.
Well, hopefully the penalty flag goes
Yeah,
up.
true. But
I mean, that dude's a defensive
freak.
player of the year.
yeah.
Front runner for me after watching him play. My goodness. Like, he is just and the way that they use him and the way that they line him up all over the place is you can say, all right, here's our protection plan for Myles Garrett. All of a sudden he's head up over the center doing his basketball crossover move. And you're just like, well, what are we supposed to do with this?
Oh my God.
It's insane how
Someone
good he
I
is.
talked to last week, very credible source, told me Myles Garrett is the best football player I have ever seen. Like, just watch him. Wait until you see him. Best football player I have ever seen. And I was like, okay, sure, yeah, that's nice. And then I was like, okay, that was no exaggeration.
We're not getting anything
absurd.
much like Myles Garrett on this.
I loved that Zaire Franklin described him as a monstar.
monster.
Yeah.
From Space Jam.
Yeah.
He's like a monstar.
Yeah.
This was earlier in the week. This was not after the game. But it's like, I was like, okay, I see.
At Lara Overton, follow her on Twitter X, at JJ Stankovitz, and also Colts.com. You got to get ready for this Saints game. These two will have you covered. I mean, almost inside the huddle. And don't forget, Inside Football with Rick Venturi will be out on Wednesday, giving you the blueprints for the Colts to beat those Saints in Week 8. Another episode of the Official Colts Podcast. Get a lands Thursday with Matt Taylor, Casey Valier, Billy Brooks, and a TBD player up that will be announced soon. So don't forget to not miss that one on Thursday. Look ahead to Sunday's game on all those. But again, Colts.com, and follow these two on Twitter and X. And by the way, real quick, I love this. The instant reaction on Sunday nights. That's JJ right here, and Bill Brooks are going to go over what happened, recapping the Colts and the Saints game. It happens week in and week out. Good job on that.
So I go on the radio every week on the Colts pregame huddle.
Sure you do.
And Jeffrey this week introduces me on there, going on with JMV, Joe Wrights, Bill Brooks, as what a childhood prodigy.
You told me, the information that you told
prodigy,
me, I filled into our audience
Yeah.
to let them know that you played piano for like 1st through 6th grade.
Yeah.
And we're pretty stinking good. Now,
No.
I did some research too. I got Google as well, don't forget. And you were pretty stinking good, but you said, I'm not doing that. I'm devoting my life to the professional game of football.
Yeah, but you took some liberties with that information. And I got Joe Wrights calling me Beethoven on the radio.
He's a talented
Like
cat.
this is that, like that little like domino meme where it's like the little domino and the big domino. It's like the little domino is me missing the Super Bowl as a kid to go to a piano recital, and the big domino is a former Colts offensive lineman calling me little Beethoven on the radio.
It's funny because Joe stayed and brought a few of his kids, his whole gaggle of children. He had like half of them there, and they were a couple rows behind our bench, and I got to see him, and I was like, hey, you feel like suiting up? I feel like we might need a few extras on 95. And he's like, not against that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, could we have a rule that, like, if you got Myles Garrett out on the field, you can't have 12 guys on the field?
Yeah, you can. Hey,
Because he's basically like 4.
But it has to be an offensive player. No, it has to be a defensive player of your defense.
okay.
I like this now,
All right.
right? Now, who would you do to help? Okay.
Okay,
Your
for-
offense against Myles Garrett and the Browns defense,
I'm
but
gonna-
you can take a 12th
Yeah.
and add an extra man, but it has to be a defensive player.
Okay, I'm gonna give you an off the wall one. Give me Kenny Moore II, a guy who is not afraid to stick his nose in on anyone.
not.
I know Myles Garrett's got some size on him, but you could run Kenny
like
with his
this.
speed and his instincts. I would take him. All you're trying to do is chip him.
That's
you're not
it.
trying to block him. You're trying to chip him. Kenny just going like a missile into him.
Who's
yeah.
your defensive player to block Myles Garrett?
DeForest Buckner.
Yeah, not
yeah.
bad.
I mean, I want
I like
the
that
heavyweight
matchup.
battle. Like, yeah, I want
Outside the
I
tackle?
want
Like outside
Muhammad
the tackle.
Ali up there. Like, this is what I want. Yes, that's what I'm going for.
Oh, I love
right
Who are
there.
you taking, Jeffrey?
Boy, oh boy. I was thinking about I'd probably put like Zaire in there or Shaq or
like that.
EJ Speed, who's by the way the hit late in the game. I mean, it was incredible, but EJ
good.
Speed's another monster in the making right
is.
there. But it's incredible. But I do have some fun facts about this Saints team and what we're
we
doing
got?
up. Cajun Creole cooking, okay, and this guy right here. Another fun fact that we didn't know about. We know you like to dabble in the kitchen. You do have some Creole in your background
No,
as
I
far
don't.
as cooking goes and Cajun goes. So I do want. This is a true story.
Caramel Cajun.
He's so humble too. I want to tell me what the difference is between. Follow me here. A gumbo and an etouffee. And have you also ever had a beignet? And when you make your beignets, how do you make them?
I
lot
don't know.
of
I don't know
questions.
what the difference between a gumbo and an etouffee is.
You don't?
I've had gumbo. It's very good.
I think etouffee is more of like a cream. Like, I think there's more of a.
That's our cook right
Isn't there a
Yeah.
heavier cream
it's
to an
our cook.
etouffee?
Hold
I
on.
believe gumbo is more brothy.
Yeah,
There
yeah,
it is.
yeah, yeah.
Great call.
Yeah.
Etouffee versus gumbo. I thought of you.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
what's the main ingredient of beignets?
Um,
I mean,
Dough.
what's the most,
Flour.
How about this?
Fried.
What's
Flour.
the most important ingredient?
The powdered
the
sugar.
oil
There
to
it is,
fry it.
right?
Yeah, I don't
the
like
powdered
them.
sugar.
I don't eat them. But
Have you been to New Orleans?
Yeah.
Okay, we know about your background in the
a
kitchen.
beignet is just a bougie donut.
It
Yeah.
is. It's an
Yeah, yeah.
elephant ear at the state
Yeah.
fair. But
Oh,
they put,
God, those things are great.
But they put. Have you been to? Have you?
People
done,
from New Orleans are going to kill us, by the way.
Why? It's the best food in
you
town.
just compared a beignet to an elephant ear.
Well, it is. I mean, I'm just saying it's fried. It's fried dough,
Yeah,
but
you're right. Yeah,
they
same
dial it up
family,
in
same
New Orleans,
family.
and I love New
Yeah.
Orleans, and I'm going
Okay.
to stuff my
Yeah.
face with a couple of them down there. But I just wanted to ask a few Cajun questions because I know you like to dabble in the kitchen a little bit.
Yeah, well, I'm not a big Cajun cook.
All right, the Neville brothers. Do you like them?
The Neville brothers.
Yeah, they're a New Orleans outfit, right?
I've
Aaron Neville.
Yeah,
Look
and-
at this face. I know this.
See,
That guy.
What?
Yeah, you never heard that song?
No.
Look at this smile.
I know what you're talking about.
See?
no, yeah.
Well, will
Little
you get out a
R&B?
little bit or go in New Orleans and ask about Aaron Neville?
The only time I've ever been to New Orleans, Bears played the Saints in 2017, and it was right after Fats Domino died, and the Saints took the field to Fats Domino singing when the Saints go marching in. That was pretty cool.
nice,
Cut all the
nice.
lights. That was pretty cool.
If you do want Cajun food in Indianapolis, it's Yats. That's the go-to
Yats,
spot.
yeah, it
Yeah,
is
you got to go
good.
to. Have you had Yats?
Hey,
I've not.
Oh yeah, that's the spot.
Go get
Not
it. And
yet.
by the way, I want to
We
thank
will.
you for putting up with me sometimes because I put you in a
Thank
position.
you, Colin, behind the camera for
Yeah,
laughing.
and
at that
Colin,
one.
I do, but I mean, I put you in positions like this, but I am going to continue this because I like putting you in
Yeah.
positions.
You like
and
putting me
seeing
in
your-
alligator-infested
Yes,
waters as childhood
and,
piano
and a
prodigy and now
kitchen,
Cajun cook.
and a kitchen in a restaurant in Louisiana. Yeah, good luck. No pressure there. All
Me
right.
and Emerald.
Bam! Lara Overton, JJ Stankovich, Colts.com for all the latest information. At Lara Overton on Twitter X, at JJ Stankovich. I am Jeffrey Gorman. Colin, thanks for your help behind the camera today. We've got to get back on track, and we did talk about things that I know a few people were rolling their eyes at. Let's just get one. We're talking playoffs and stuff for this team, but we do have a spark, and that spark we've proven is Shane Steichen and this offense, and watch what they can do against a team that is meddling and treading water like the Saints. It just takes one, and the streak starts. So hang in there, Colts fan. For JJ and Lara, I'm Jeffrey Gorman. This is the official Colts podcast. I did that right, did I not?
Got it.
Not
Got
the
it.
Colts official podcast. No, this is the official Colts podcast. We're brought to you by our friends at Win Vegas. We will see you on the air next week.